Welcome everybody. This is our 35th deal breakdown, which is starting to get surprising to say every time we say a new higher number. But if you're new here, this is a weekly deal breakdown that Charles Stanback and myself do. We pull a wholesale deal right out of our pipeline that we've closed and funded on, and we walk our audience through the deal from A to Z, the good, the bad, the ugly, the learning moments, the key takeaways. And this week we were on a deal from Charles's pipeline. Real quick, Charles, give them a quick overview of what you do and who you are, and then we'll jump into your deal.
For sure. So my name is Charles Stanback. I am the one-man band A to Z wholesaler. I do everything from my own list pulling to closing the deals, transactions, dispo, everything, bro. So A to Z wholesaling, one-man band. If you're looking for help on how to do that or kind of a guide on how to do that, I'm your guy, Chris. What about you, bro?
I love it. So I do nationwide dispo. We help wholesalers instead of being direct to seller, we're direct to wholesaler, and we help wholesalers new and experienced move deals for max profit across the country. We dominate in the Texas markets. We're well versed in a few others, and we're taking down new markets every day. Real quick, Charles, make sure that you are live on your Instagram and Facebook because I forgot to hit my button, but I just did. But other than that, we're good. We're good to go. So, Charles, we're going to go over one of your deals out of your pipeline today. So, let's start off with how you generated the lead. What source did you use? What was the seller's inherent motivations that you made you target that seller? And yeah, give us that breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, this, I'm sure I've used this before, but this is going to come as a surprise to everyone, I'm sure. This was indeed an absentee owner list. I think we were calling, this was in Maryland, though. I was calling in Maryland at the time. This was back when we were doing a couple of states.
Okay.
And yeah, we're absentee owner calling in Maryland and got a lead from the magic question, though. She didn't want to sell her house that she lived in, but she had a different property that she wanted to sell.
I love it. Okay, so you or your cold callers cold called this lady.
Yep.
She said, no, sorry, not interested. Before hanging up the phone, it's in your script to ask what you're calling a magic question. Do you have any other properties, land or homes for sale that you might be interested in selling? And she said, yes.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay. I love it. So she says yes. Does that mean do you guys jump back into your script and you start asking questions about that property, or is it you get the address and you get off the phone and maybe you take some notes and call her back?
No, we're going straight forward. So if they have a different property that'd be interested in selling, we're trying to get that address, and keep the process going. If they have a want and a want to sell now, or very very soon, we'll go ahead and go through the process and try to get them an offer right on that call. We're not doubling back.
Okay, I love it. So she has a secondary property or land for sale. So what is it? Is it a house or is it land?
It's a lot, bro. It's a lot in Front Royal, Virginia, which I had never even heard of. Actually, just went there for a basketball tournament, like 3 weeks ago.
I think y'all won. Did y'all win?
No, we did it. We lost the first round. But
I thought y'all won. I thought you were setting me up for the love there.
yeah, no, that was a tough one, man. But
Okay.
yeah, no, we so random place in Virginia, and it was it was in like this lake community. So it seemed like it would be a decent deal, but we had never done a deal there before, no buyers in the area. And we ended up, I think she wanted 7,000 or so for it, 10,000, something like that. We offered 5, and it was one of those where it took a little while to get it locked up, though. But yeah, that was the situation. Very very simple land deal. Yeah.
So vacant lot that is that seller, is she in that same state or is she still an absentee?
She's in Maryland. Yeah, so she's out of state. Hasn't been there forever. She was older. Her motivation was her husband had died, and she just was like, we were gonna use this lot. We've had it for 30 years and just never did, and now I really have no use for it. So.
And that's the case that I see, at least across DFW and more of the Texas markets, is some of these vacant lots have been owned for decades.
Yep.
And it was inherited or passed on to somebody in the family, and they really didn't even have any plans, or they did,
Yep.
but it's not a full-time job for them. So, just like people have kitchen renovations that is on the to-do list for 5 years. These
Hmm.
vacant lots that someone's gonna, just figure out how to build a house will sit in a family for many years. Uh,
Yeah.
so for her, it had been in the family for 30 years. Her
Yep.
and her husband, at some point had a plan to build a new home, and it'd be an investment for them. But husband passed away.
Hmm.
Sounds like she didn't want to follow through with that herself.
No.
And now you call her and she says, I might be open to selling. So how
Yep.
do you guys go from I might be open to selling to making your offer and eventually getting her down to a price that you guys are comfortable with? And the second question is, it's a market that you're not nuanced in. So what's your approach there?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is one of those situations where she does want to sell it because she knows she's not going to use it, but she doesn't have like motivation for the money, or she's not going to go through any strife if she doesn't sell it, right?
Yeah.
So in these type of deals, you really do have to build a lot of rapport, because they're not going to work with you if they have no reason to work with you, especially if they don't like you. You know what I mean? So I spent probably 45 minutes to an hour, which is normal for me, on the phone with her, just talking through what she had going on, getting to know her a little bit. She's older, so doing business over the phone was not her preference necessarily, and she didn't really know how this went either. She wasn't well versed in selling real estate or buying real estate, so she was a little confused about how this process was supposed to go. So I did a lot of explaining on the process side of how this would work, and I remember asking her, "Hey, what do you plan on doing with the money?" And she's like, "I don't know. I'll probably just give it to my granddaughters, or my granddaughter does a lot of travel gymnastics. I'll probably just give it to her mom for that purpose." Like, she had no use for the money, right?
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where it would provide her a little bit of peace of mind, because she is still having to pay the taxes every year. She doesn't know what's going on out there, right? So it just is that kind of little bit of extra peace of mind that led her to being like, okay, I really will sell this if it comes down to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
I,
pretty much how it went.
I like that you said that because a lot of the time, people think sellers are money motivated.
Yeah.
And then you have a seller who you're making an offer. I think you said 5, she wanted 10.
Hmm.
Although that's still, that's a momentum shifter for sure. It's not going to be a life changer for this lady, especially if
Yeah.
she's older in life. So she's not, you're not offering her 100,000, and she's not money motivated on 5 or 10,000. So it's not
Hmm.
moving her, but she did kind of paint a picture for you that she might want to use this money for her granddaughters. I think you said gymnastics or travel or something like that. So you could, paint the picture when you're closing. What's this going to do for your granddaughter? Or how's it going to make you feel when you're able to help your granddaughter in her travels? So that is a key takeaway in your rapport building. And then
Yep.
you said the process is something that was super important to her. So when you're talking about the process, how simple are you breaking that down to your seller, just so you know that they have the confidence in the process and have a good understanding of that? How are you breaking that down to your seller?
Yeah, I mean, I just try to give them a very genuine feel for what's going to happen, right? Step by step, as simple as I can, as far as the steps are concerned. So, hey, the first thing we've got to do is, agree on a price, right? The second thing we've got to do once we do that is, we'll have a purchase agreement that we both sign, right? Once we have a purchase agreement, we send that agreement over to a closing attorney who runs title. They handle all the paperwork on this. Once they give us the okay to close, you can go to that attorney's office, or they will, they can come to you in terms of mobile notary, right, to get the seller documents done and notarized. We'll send the money in, and then you get paid, and they transfer the deed and all that good stuff. So I just break it down kind of as simply as I can. I make sure I'm asking, a lot of, does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that? What questions do you have about that, to try to uncover the kind of any black swan things that may concern them, if you will.
Yeah, I like this deal because it's making you, kind of show your foundation. You can't just chase after
Hmm.
price. What we hear all the time is that people, customers are going to buy with the person that they like, a process that they know, and paperwork that they trust, right?
Yep.
So you're
Yep.
having to cover everything. You got to do the report building so she likes the person, which is you.
Yep.
You got to go over the process so she's comfortable and knows what's happening. And then eventually you're going to have to do the paperwork and go through that contract with her. So
Yeah.
this is a seller that's not money motivated, does want to get off of the property, but it's kind of got to be a right person, right time
For
kind of
sure.
thing.
For
And you
sure.
can check off those three boxes. It sounds like you can get her to move forward. So you guys, you make your first offer at 5. She wants 10. How do you guys go into that type of negotiation? And how do you get to? I think you said 7.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing was, at first she didn't even know what the address was because she's like, I know I pay the taxes on this, but and it ended up not even having an address. So she's like trying to figure it out. I ended up going into PropStream really, and it wasn't connected either. It wasn't linked to her name for whatever reason, and so I ended up having to talk to her like 2 or 3 times, right? And this just goes back to like following up, right? Like she's not in any rush to do it. So when we get off the phone the first time, I talked to her for a while, right? Just trying to get to know her and understand what's going on. And she's like, "Okay, call me back in a couple of days. Let me find the address, right?" And I had to call her back 2, 3, 4 times, and she kept forgetting. Hey, oh man, I was supposed to get you that address. Call me back in a couple of days or call, you know what I mean? That type of thing. So I touched probably 5 or 6 times before she could really give me the address. I could actually take a look, see where it was, and it didn't have an actual address. It was giving me a tax ID number. I'm having to look it up pretty much in the county website, right, to find where it is actually. So it was kind of one of those weird ones where you got to stay on them because they're not super motivated, but they do want to sell it. They will sell it, right? You just got to stay on and stay consistent. If you stop calling after time number 2, I never get this deal, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm consistent, I'm not getting frustrated with her either, right? I'm just kind of like, hey, I mean, I know you're not in a rush to do this, but we want to get it done for you. Did you have a chance to look at that for that address? Oh, not yet. Hey, Miss So and So is perfectly fine. When can you actually have this to be by? And I had that conversation. And look, you can try to put as much urgency behind somebody as you want, but somebody that doesn't have a lot of urgency is not going to just get it out of thin air. Like this is a good example of like sometimes you're just going to have to keep following up and wait. Right? Like there is no. I know that this can and will happen at some point, and if I'm the one that's touched the most times, even if other people are calling her, right, she's probably going to go with me. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So I'm building a little bit of rapport each conversation, not getting frustrated with her. Time 5 or 6, she's like, "Okay, I finally got this tax ID number for you." We go through the whole process. She just said 10,000. She didn't even know what it was worth. The property taxes have been like, I don't know, 4,000 or 3,000 or something for the last few years. So I ended up offering 5. She didn't even really give me any pushback on it. But by the time we got there, I'm like, we're gonna need this for 5,000, to really make it work for us. Just because what we're gonna want to do out there. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, like that's fine. I'm like, damn, I should have offered 2,500.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy, right? But we end up selling at 5,000, and she doesn't really know how to use a computer at this point. So I end up having to, I have her go to a like UPS store that's not far away, and they print it out. I send it to them. They print it out, and I go through it with her on the phone, like that, and then they helped her like take pictures and send me pictures of the actual agreement. Yeah, it was crazy, man. One of those situations where you just have to work with what you got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't know what they're doing, it's similar to, bro. You remember that the one that we did in Houston last year? I had
Mhm.
to make him an email. He didn't have an email. I had to make him an email. He just
Remember that.
he was just like, dude, we'll go through it, and you could just he could not figure it out. He's like, you can just sign on my behalf if you can. I said, perfectly fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where they're not gonna learn and they don't know. So
Yeah. No,
you got
definitely. Yeah, your resourcefulness sticks out in some of these deals, and sometimes you have to help an older seller get over the virtual thing because you're
yeah,
you're in a completely different state. You can't go to her house if you wanted to,
yep,
and sending her to the FedEx office and coaching her through the phone and getting their help uh,
mm-hmm.
got you the deal.
Yeah,
Okay,
yep,
so you go, helping her through that, holding her hand. You guys agree to $5,000. She gets the contract back to you. You
yep.
open up the title. Were there any can of worms that came in opening up the title?
No, she had been paying the taxes religiously, or they had been for the last 30 years, and so title back came back clean. But I hadn't done any deals in Virginia, especially not that area at that point. So I had to call around a little bit to find a closing attorney that was willing to do it. There's a couple of ways to do this. I just chose to Google closing attorneys in this area. I called a couple until I found some that actually knew what assignments were, and found one, and they were like, "Yeah, we're good to go." I probably had to talk to three of them. The one I think one, the second one, the first one was like, "We don't do it at all." The second one, like, "Oh yeah, we do them, just not like super well versed." I'm like, "Yeah, all right, appreciate
You
it."
said no.
I'm good, yeah. And that third one, they were like, "Yeah, we know what we're doing when it comes to assignments." So I ended up going with them and got the agreement over to them. They understood what was going on, and yeah, there wasn't any title issues here. So that was a beautiful thing for
So
sure.
real quick, when you're calling title companies, what are the first couple of questions that you have to see if you want to work with them?
Yeah, so I just introduced myself. I build a little bit of rapport there, make sure ask how their day is going. Most people don't ask that to these people, right? And so, oh, you know what, I'm doing really well. How can we help you? I'm like, hey, I'm just wondering if you guys do assignments,
Hmm.
assignment of contract. And I don't want to give a lot of detail as to what that is because if they don't know what it is, you don't need to work. You don't want to be their first one,
Yeah.
in my experience, right? They say, and I based whether I would use them or not on how confidently they, answer that question. Like I said, one was kind of like, yeah, I think we do. Let me ask the attorney, right? Whereas the third one that I called the paralegal or whatever that answered the phone's like, yeah, absolutely, we do those all the time. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, this is the one. So, do you do assignments? Is always my first question. Do you have time to have one closed for me in the next couple of weeks? Is usually my next question. And if they can do both of those things, I'll ask um, what does your process look like? Or do you have a process that you like to stick to with these? Oh, well, you just send the agreement over, or, both of them when you have them, and we'll, get it done as we can. Some people will like require you to have a buyer in before they start running title,
Mhm.
which I've seen that multiple times. Don't love that, but understand it at the same time. And these people didn't though. They're like, just send the agreement in, and once you have that second one, we'll get it done for you.
Okay, cool. So you find your title company, you have your A to B now, your purchase contract with the seller, and now
Yep.
this is still, which is why you had to call around title companies, it's still an unfamiliar market to you. So how
Yep.
are you going to sell a property where you don't necessarily have a buyer's list?
I'm gonna go with your comps or your buyers. The only reason that we were even comfortable with locking this deal up is because there were a few sales of lots in this same little lake community, right in Front
Mhm.
Royal. So we saw a few cash sales for lots in PropStream, and when I say a few, I mean literally three, and that was it, right? So we started with those three buyers. One of them ended up being a couple that had just bought land, probably similar to how this lady did, because they were planning on building on it.
Mhm.
The other two ended up being Hispanic guys that would build, right? They were buying it to build. They built houses, and one of them didn't want it, which led us to one buyer that we could really pull from in this area who ended up wanting it. So we got kind of, I mean, it can be difficult to find buyers on deals, but it really does work to keep it simple. And your comps or your buyers is probably one of the best dispo rules that I can ever give anybody because it really is the truth.
Yeah, that'll lead you straight to the water quicker than
Yeah.
anything else.
What do you
Uh,
think about that though? I mean, you have a kind of a vast list now, but
I think you're right. I mean, for the quickest feedback, for the quickest dispo, and maybe for the max profit, you want to call people who are buying directly in that neighborhood. That's
yeah,
the shortcut to you selling the deal for sure.
for sure.
There's more than those buyers, but those buyers just bought there, and you know the price that they bought for, so you're working with ultimate leverage.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%.
Okay,
So,
I like it. So you find a buyer off of prop stream. He's
mhm,
from one of your comps. Those are your best buyers.
yep.
And so you is it an easy negotiation? You sent it to him at what price? Worked for him. Didn't have any other buyer backup offers, so you move forward, or how does that look?
Yeah, relatively close to that, man. It wasn't super. We sent it out there at 15, just trying to make a clean 10 on it. And ah, I need this for 10. We end up at 12.5, which I'm fine with, right? Quick little 72.50, or no, 7,500 on that deal, and we sent over the assignment. He signed it. Luckily, he had worked with wholesalers before. That's one thing I always ask new buyers that I've never worked with before. hey, have you worked with wholesalers? What you realize is almost every buyer gets their deals from wholesalers these
Yeah,
days. Like it is incredible, which is crazy because they're trying to shut down some of a lot of wholesalers really in the across the country. You see,
yeah,
Pennsylvania came out with some laws that are
I did.
pretty much undercutting you in wholesale now. So he's like, yeah, I've done it a couple of times. So I explained how our process works, and he's like, okay, that sounds good. Send over the assignment. He signed it pretty quick, sent in 2,000 in EMD, and within the first 48 hours, and we closed in like 3 weeks. It was very simple deal.
I love it. Yeah. So there's a lot I like from this deal, but to go back to your buyer question, when you ask have you ever worked for or worked with a wholesaler before, or bought from a
Mhm.
wholesaler before?
Yep.
Yes, a lot of them say yes, but there's a few that either say they don't anymore, or they're kind of like same thing when we get a price from a seller. They're like, you should dig in on that.
Yep.
What went wrong, and why didn't you like working with whoever you worked with before? Because they're not saying no; they're just giving you the process that they'd like to go by.
Yep.
I get better in my dispo process every time I have a call like that because it just you want that buyer feedback and you want to know how deals go wrong, whether it's in your business or a buyer is going to tell you about another deal that they were a part of. But there's so much knowledge to be learned from when you do hear a little bit of kickback from that question.
Yeah, yeah, I can't agree with you more on that. I mean, have you ever worked with a wholesaler, and how has that experience been for you? Are two really powerful questions when you're talking to buyers, and it allows you to see what other wholesaler mistakes have been made, so that you can correct them, or how you can help your buyers be better work with for wholesalers, right? Because a lot of them just don't understand why we have a process, and then a lot of wholesalers don't even have a process. So
Yeah.
it makes it difficult for them because every situation is different,
Yep.
every transaction is different. But yeah, it definitely is. It's helpful. I'm sure you run into this on a daily basis when you're
Yeah.
when you're talking to
Yeah.
buyers.
You can ask that same question to the title companies too. What do you like
Yeah,
about working with wholesalers? What are some things that you don't like, so I can make sure it's not a part of our process? And they'll tell you,
yeah.
we don't like it when you whatever, and
Hmm. Hmm.
you'll be ready for that. Okay, so you make it to the finish line. A 12.5 dispo price, $7,500 profit, all
Yeah,
off off of asking that magic question of do you have any other properties that you'd be interested in selling? Is there anything
yeah.
else from this deal that we haven't touched on before we get into the learning moments and key takeaways?
No, I mean we had to do a mobile notary for the seller, which I mean she was just so surprised at how
Nice.
easy this can really be. Yeah, like she's like, I can't believe that this is happening like this. I mean, it was one of those deals. This felt like when I get deals off of that question, I almost feel like they're free deals, bro.
Yeah.
Especially when they're in other states that you never work in, and you're able to get it dispo. It's just like those are the deals that make you. Um, those are like the bonus deals. It's like a bonus for doing good work. You know what I mean? You just
Yeah.
gonna get these drops in that you don't expect, and it's like, wow, that was fun. I appreciate that from the wholesale universe. So
Yeah. Yep.
clean deal, man. I know we do a lot of problem deals on here, but I like to go through some simple deals sometimes just to show people that every deal is not a massive headache for us.
Yeah.
It doesn't come with a bunch of anxiety. So, very simple deal.
I love it. Well, let me tell you my key takeaway from this, and then you can share yours. So
Yeah.
back to when you were talking about like through your negotiations, how you had to call her back, and it wasn't a one-time ring, and she picks up, and you guys pick up on your last conversation. You had to hit her several
Mhm.
times before you
Yep.
can even advance the ball. And you said for you, that's not a frustrating thing. It's just charge it to the game. It's a part of the process. Until you get her back
Mhm.
on the phone, you can't continue the conversation. It's just if it takes 2 calls or if it takes 12 calls, your mood and your tone and your process is going to be the same no
Yeah.
matter what call it was. So for me, what stuck out is when you go that extra mile, it actually pumps me up because your competition is dying out, and you said that earlier.
Yep.
Um, that road, and it's a cliche saying or meme or whatever, but that road is way less crowded. When you
Mhm.
call back for your 12th time, for sure 90% of your competition has
Yeah.
given up and sold themselves a lie about that seller when none of it is true. That seller still is ready to sell. She just hasn't picked up the phone yet. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so that's my biggest takeaway. And you showed that through several different parts in this deal, from the calling to the sending her to FedEx and walking her through it and calling FedEx. Bro, some people would have just fell out over that. Like, I can get my seller to sign on their phone. Like, I'm out.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But yeah, you show that throughout the deal that you would go the extra mile, and I know for sure through the years of doing this that a lot of wholesalers drop out before they get to where you ultimately got to. So that is my biggest takeaway: is going the extra mile. Got you this deal, and it'll continue to make you a lot of money because you're willing to go that extra mile.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I appreciate that, man. It's a kind of a lost art sometimes. It seems like in this world in general, man, people do not like doing more steps than they usually do to have to do something. So, and I've noticed the same about you, bro. Like you go to the furthest extent to make sure that your JV partners, your buyers, and your title companies, and everyone is taken care of, bro. So, I think we do a good job of pushing each other when it comes or showing each other what a good example of that looks like.
Yeah, this is an Amazon Prime generation. So for a
Yeah,
lot of people,
yeah.
if it don't show up at your front door, it ain't getting done.
Seriously, bro.
So what is your takeaway?
Similar, bro. I think the biggest one is just patience here. One, you always got to ask the magic question.
Yeah.
And two is just patience. Like I said, she didn't. You have to recognize when somebody is when urgency or creating a lot of urgency is not going to benefit you. Like
Sure.
she probably would have gotten frustrated with me and
Yeah.
like just said F it in general if I had been super pressing her, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes back to recognizing the type of person or the type of personality that you have, and kind of molding yourself to fit that. I was very patient with her the 3 or 4 times we spoke, and she didn't have that address yet. I was a little frustrated inside, right? But very, very patient with her, and it shows that that's the right thing because it pays off,
Yeah.
right? It pays off, and you realize that was the right thing to do. I think the other key takeaway is you can do deals anywhere, man. Like, don't get scared of a market that you've never been in. If it looks like a deal, if you can run some comps work very similar all across the country, except for some of the major markets, right? So you can do deals anywhere. Don't be afraid to dip your toe in a different market, just for a one-off. Like I said, it's like a free deal, man. Like you don't want to run away from those just because you're not necessarily well versed in that market. So yeah, those are the two things I would say. Don't be scared of testing out or doing a single deal in a new market if it makes sense, and to be patient with your sellers, especially the older ones, man, because rushing them and putting the press to them is never a good idea. Generally, I mean, think about how you'd want your grandma to be talked to
Yeah.
if you're in this situation, right? That's how you want to act.
Yeah, agreed 100%. I think what most people don't do is they never put themselves in the shoes of their seller, right? It's just, what is my process? What does my script say? How do I get to the offer, and how do I, negotiate from there? But a lot of people never take the time to literally close your eyes, put
Yeah.
yourself in that seller's shoes, what their life is like. For this one, she's not price motivated, so why would you ever, be urgent and pushing on price when that's not the thing that she cares about?
Yep.
To know that, one, she's had it for 30 years, she's not in a rush. I just need to make sure to keep in communication with her. But every seller has different scenarios where your script, your flow, everything should evolve around their, kind of the way that they need it to go. If
Yep.
not, you're going to lose out on a lot of deals. But yeah, excellent deal review. I think there was a lot of gold in it, although a simple deal.
Yeah.
It still came with a lot of skill set and nuance that you were able to do and go the extra mile. So appreciate you sharing it with us. And anything else you'd like to let our audience know before we let you go?
Dude, I think we should do kind of a state of the market one of these weeks. Maybe we'll throw in a bonus. Maybe this is a conversation for offline, but if you're on here, you can get a kind of preview of what's going on with kind of the wholesale regulations that are going on, how it's affecting, how you're thinking about your business with it, how I'm thinking about my business with it, and kind of throw in some extras on here maybe next week or later this week sometime. What you think?
I like that. We should plan for that. And if anybody sees this and has a question for us or something they want to bring into it, then
Yeah.
message me or Charles. Before I let you go, do you want to check and make sure you didn't have any missed questions or comments on yours?
Yeah, I think we're good.
On Instagram, I'm good. And I don't think Facebook pops them up for me.
I don't know what goes on for Facebook. Yeah, I think we're good to go though, bro.
I love it. All right, Charles, appreciate you. We'll be back next Monday, 5-ish o'clock, and it'll be on me.
Yeah, just keep
All right.
dialing, guys.
Later, boy. Bro.
Thanks.